Welcome to Talking Live. I am thrilled to talk about the movie Black Balsam. It was produced and written by one of my dear friends, David Shifter. And we've also invited the very, very talented Mark Ashworth. Did I say that right, Mark?
You said it perfectly, with aplomb.
Yeah, so I watched this movie from beginning to end, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. David, you and I go way back. We know each other from the TV world, but you segued into movie writing and producing, acting and directing. Of course, you were an actor in this movie where it showcases a couple who wants to buy a house in the woods, a little cabin, a charming cabin in North Carolina. And they're in for somewhat of a rough road, although they go into it somewhat idealistically. Do you want to tell me a little bit more, David, about what inspired you to write this film?
Well, a lot of times, Robbie, you see on the beginning of a movie, it says inspired by true events. This was inspired by true events. My daughters, Caitlin and Michaela, told me that their mom was buying a cabin in the mountains. She and her fiance were buying a cabin in the mountains. I thought, oh, that's great. But then they started telling me about how the owner or the person living there didn't want to leave. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Then he started to take things that were supposed to be left in the house. He started taking them out. So it became a real estate nightmare for them. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be, fancy if this guy, this home owner in this case, is sort of stuck around and, never left. And I started, my mind goes into these tangents, and I started writing the story. And what you got is Black Balsam.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And of course, Mark, you play the deranged character Wes. And I have to admit, other than David, you were my favorite actor in it. I loved you in this role. You were fantastic. I think you made the whole movie just shine. What drew you to this character?
I always like to play the characters that dance a little bit with the darkness. I do. There's so much there to sink my teeth into. It's quite opposite of how I live my life. And so it gives me an opportunity to really jump in and commit and live a life that I never would have an opportunity of living. As an actor, you audition for all different types of roles, and sometimes the lawyers or the doctors, they don't really give me as much to chomp on, but this specific role was something definitely drawn to, and just something I love to giddy up on.
Did you have a certain real life character that you were shaping Wes around when you were playing him? Was there someone in the news, or was there somebody you had read about that kind of was closely connected to Wes in your mind?
Well, I mean, there are psychopaths and people out there that you can kind of garner certain things from. As far as having anybody that I specifically leaned on, I would say no. It was mostly all in the script.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely parts of it that I didn't. When you read a script, as you get through it, you kind of. The first time you read through it, it's the only time you'll read through it as an audience member. And after that, and especially if you're attached to the role and you've already booked it, usually I don't get the script until after I've read the audition pieces or the sides. And so once I got the role, then I was able to attach myself to the whole script. And the first time you read that script is the first time you read it as an audience member, the one and only time. And so this was... I'm sorry, I'm waffling on a little bit. What was the question?
Well, we were just talking about, was there somebody that inspired you? There are so many criminals in the news.
Yes, that's right.
These days to borrow inspiration. There's almost too many. So I was just wondering, and you were saying that a lot of it came from the script and
itself. Yes.
And
it was towards the end of the script where there's a scene. I'm not going to spoil it for those that haven't seen, but there is a little bit of a reveal of character that says a lot about who Wes is and how he lives his life, and that was something that you can't really hint at that until you get there, because that would spoil the audience too, right? And so yeah, it was all in the script. I trusted David's script, and I lent into that as much as possible.
David, did I inspire you for the Wes character?
No, not at all. I'm sorry, not for that. Not in this movie.
No, but that must make you feel good, David, that Mark was really able to get everything he needed from the script, because I thought it was a very layered character. Like, Wes was not a simple character in the movie. And what I loved about the movie is it does not end as you expect it to end at all. There's no way to guess it. And it's really a surprise. And the end, I was sitting at the edge of my seat, like, what is going to happen?
When I wrote the film, I had to come up with a lot of fiction. Granted, there was, it was inspired by true events, but I mean, there was a lot of literary play in this thing, and the characters were such an important part. You first of all have this married couple with two kids in college who, they're city slickers and they want to find a getaway. And the wife is the one who really pushes the husband into this mountain retreat, and won't it be charming and all of this. The husband was along for the ride, and he says, okay, happy wife, happy life, right? And then everything goes south. And I don't want to, set up too much, but I will tell you that Wes's character, while he was living in the house that he's always lived in, it was owned by his mother, and there are mentions of his mother being abused by Wes. And instead of leaving the house to her son, she sort of put it to him after, in the afterlife, and left it to a women's shelter, and he had to go. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's so interesting in terms of like real life. I've heard of so many situations where people had to sell their apartment or had to sell their home. And it was really a sad situation because they didn't want to. So I thought in that regard, it was very relatable, Wes's story, the sadness. Or I've had patients who, have read a will that they were tremendously disappointed, and from a psychological vantage point. And I don't know if you felt this when you were playing Wes, Mark, but when you don't get the will that you kind of expect from your parents, it could feel like you're getting an F on your report card as a child. And then there's no one to battle with because it's just there in black and white. Yeah.
You can imagine that would be like you rip your heart out, being disowned after death, for whatever reason it is. And family is something that is so, everybody's got family issues, and that there are different things in families that sometimes work, sometimes they're feigned, sometimes they're real. But there's so many multi-dimensional things that happen within families, and it was my through line. Family was throughout the movie. That was Wes's through line. The love of what he knew and how he lived his life in that house, and the things that surrounded him, his day to day. That was all he ever knew. And so, yeah, to be kicked out of that situation would just, it would turn your world upside down, and you would fight with everything that you had to keep hold of what you had and what you knew.
I don't know if there was something wrong with me, or Mark, you're just such a good actor and I loved you so much in the role. In a little way, I was rooting for you. David, that wasn't your
Oh,
intention, was it?
thank you.
You know, I don't think that people should think of Wes as. I mean, he was a troublemaker. The whole town knows Wes Goins, the family, the compound that was their land, and the sheriff's department is no stranger to having to report to the Goins property for yet another shenanigan because of Wes. And so, and there is that familiarity when myself and and Tom Gossam Jr., the actor who plays the Sheriff Benson, when we arrive, we know him right away. Here we go again. Know that the property's been sold. They have the paperwork, and it's time to go. And we end up arresting him. And I don't want to go beyond that, but it's that kind of situation where I don't want Wes to be looked at as a bad person. He might be a real troublemaker, and this might have made him snap because you're taking something that's always been part of him.
It was very,
Peeling
it
away
was,
an onion, wasn't it? Peeling away an onion, the situation
yes.
once it starts, and that was it. It's just humanizing that person, and like I said, that was all in the script. And yeah, there's the gradual peeling back of the layers of who he was, and I think it's all there too for the audience to feel as the lead family are feeling it and going through those certain circumstances that happen that scare the ever-loving daylights out of them. Is the audience is with them while they're feeling all that.
And I just want to take a moment for the audience to see a clip from this film so they can experience your work.
I didn't actually buy it from him. Mother passed away.
She didn't leave it to her son.
I don't think you know how things work around here.
Where's your sister? She's here.
One of my favorite lines, and I think that there should be t-shirts and like coffee cups for this. Don't get too cozy.
Yes. Mark, I'm going to let you talk, but I have to say that don't get too cozy.
That was it.
That
Yes. Well,
when I wrote this, I wanted something memorable in that people would come away with, and don't get too cozy. Star Wars has May the Force be with you. We have don't get too cozy, and you'll see.
Yeah.
Why,
Yeah, I love that. And Mark, you just you said it with such power, and you were. I mean, I think the reason why your role is so interesting, and again, it's your acting also that brought so much life to it, is because people are curious about Wes. How did he get the way he is? Was it a bad mother? Did he have a raw deal? Was there something off with him that he wasn't able to regroup? So it leaves a lot of questions. And I'm just wondering, when you were playing Wes, what was your mindset? What was your psychological mindset for who Wes was, in addition to being a dark guy? Did you have any other thoughts? Like, do you go into who he is from birth to who he is now? What's the process for you?
With my character development, yeah, I mean, there are things that you pull on, and I tend to, something that I always rely on when I'm doing work and building character is like, what animal would I be if I were an animal? Just one of the things that I will do is try and figure out through the course of the happenings within the script throughout the different acts that play out in the 3-act story. What animal am I? And for this particular role, I was a black cat, and a cat can be so playful at times, be so curious at others, but at the same time, it's got these claws, and it's just so ready to pounce at the drop of a hat if something turns it the wrong way. So comfortable at doing what it wants to do, and just kind of being a cat, right?
Mhm.
And that was Wes for me. He was the kind of a black cat. And yeah, I thankfully I don't have too much that I could pull from by way of real life, other than family, right?
Yeah.
The very inner the inner conflict of family. Personally, I could pull from that, and the just how family can be like that, but sometimes it's like that, and sometimes it's like that. It's just
Yeah.
and so there was that. Yeah, just the different things about it, some of these roles. You have to rely on the script or fear getting lost within, right?
Mhm.
And so with this one, I was able to base most of my work on the animal.
I think that's so interesting, such an interesting process. And David, I know you had an accent in this movie, so I'm wondering what made you go there.
Well, I mean, this is the backwoods country, and you know, you're not going to have many New Yorkers out there playing the sheriff's deputy. So I felt compelled that I had to become a local. And we filmed in between Brevard, North Carolina, which is in the mountains, and Pickens County, South Carolina. And I have to give a major shout out to the Pickens County, South Carolina Sheriff's Department. All the police cars you saw, the uniforms, the badges, they provided all that to us, and they were great. In fact, the police officers, other than myself and the sheriff, are all real cops. So they were all real sheriff's deputies that you see, and so they were terrific. They were a lot of fun. But yeah, I had to put that accent on, just like Mark had to, lose the British accent and come up
Yeah.
with a regional accent.
Yeah, it's so important. So important when yeah, that's it. That's some of the other work you do. That was the easiest decision I've ever had to make, was to drop
Wow.
that.
I don't even know how that's done. I'm like so in awe. Like, I would have never known. When David told me you were British, I'm like, really? That's so interesting, because there was no hint of it. David, you also told me that this was shot during COVID, which also probably further complicated your shooting schedule.
Very much so. We were under a Screen Actors Guild contract, a SAG contract. So we had to adhere to additional requirements and safety protocols than anybody else would have, which meant we had to create zones. Like Zone A would be the set itself. Zone B, and those who were allowed on Zone A, the actors, the principal cast and crew. And then it goes out from there. Like, makeup might not have to go on set; they could work outside of that. Masks were required, and I think one thing that really helped us, we were out in the middle of nowhere. There was nowhere to go. We lived in our own compound. We rented for the production. We rented these 3 cabins. One of them, which we filmed in, that you saw. Another one that had a garage kind of carriage house that we also filmed in, but above it were little apartments, and then a third one which was a living cabin. Those 3 cabins were our sets, and we also had up the road there was a motel, and we rented all the rooms there and put up crew and cast as like day players who would come in, and we would put them up there. The one thing we asked were, like, on our days off, which were very few, please don't become exposed to COVID when you come back. And nobody got sick. We got through this thing. We filmed, I think, over 3 weeks? Was it? Maybe 3 weeks.
Right around that, yeah. I'm on set for a week, personally, I think.
You were there for a week, okay. And actors were coming in and out, and everyone had to do COVID tests coming in, and it was it was a little worrisome for me as a producer. I have to worry that if one person gets sick, we got to shut down.
Yeah, that must have been And also you had Josie Davis, who
Yes.
is a fairly well-known actress. She was known as a childhood actor in Charles in Charge. I remember watching her back in the day, and she
Oh yeah.
also plays a lead role in this movie.
Yeah, oh, she's great. She plays Ellen Roth, and the husband and wife, Ellen and Bill Roth, Bill being played by Brian Kurlander. They just clicked, and and both actors know this. Neither one of those actors was our first choice. Because we weren't that deep into it. We had our, you know, idea of who we wanted, and one person wasn't available. The other one tried to do some sneaky stuff and tried to alter the contract 2 days before we were filming. So we had to act quick, and we couldn't have gotten better people. Josie was fabulous.
Yeah.
Brian was fabulous, especially with 2 days to learn a script.
Oh
And
God.
they connected on screen. They really connected. Wes, I mean, Wes, I call you Wes. Mark, you nailed it. I mean, you just nailed it.
it.
Every take was a win, and it just comes
winner.
together. Love it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very proud of this movie. My last film called The Penthouse, which is also available on streaming platforms like Amazon, Apple, and all that. I took a lead role in that one, and I will never take the lead role, be the producer, the caterer, the transportation coordinator. Never again. It's too much.
I don't
too
blame
much work.
you.
So
I
I
don't
took a
blame
nice,
you.
easy role of a sheriff's deputy, couple of days, and that was it. A few scenes. It was easy work.
Let
Besides,
me ask you both, have you watched the movie? And if so, what is it like to watch yourself in a movie like this, or just in a movie in general?
You want to go first, Mark?
Sure. I have not seen the movie.
What?
No, I've not seen it. No, not seen it yet. It's hard to watch my own self. I watch myself a little bit if I'm looking on set, if I'm looking for just camera frame and just different things, if I'm doing technical adjustments, but it's so hard for me to watch myself. I was talking, I think, to Josie about this. It's like the very first time that you watch it, you're not watching the story, you're just watching and analyzing your every decision that you made on the day, which as an actor that shows up to set prepared, they've already done like the base of the iceberg, and then when you show up on set, it's just that little tip that you actually see. And so to watch it through the first time is extremely difficult, because you are just kind of psychoanalyzing different things that you did, or maybe what you had done differently. It's probably not until around the third time that you can shut those voices out, to pay attention to the movements of the whole story and see how it all fits in with the different pieces around. So I have a really hard time watching my own work. I have to be honest, I do. It's difficult. Yeah. What about you, David? How do you feel?
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree 100%, Mark. It's difficult for me to watch myself as an actor. Now, I used to do television news, and I had no trouble watching the air check from the newscast. I'd come back to the station and watch it, and I had no problem doing that. But watching myself perform a role, really, regardless of what it is, serial killer, cop, whatever, it's always just weird to me. Watching this movie now, as the producer, I saw several cuts of it. I saw several versions that weren't complete without music. Music makes the movie, man.
Yeah.
And I watched this as an audience member at the premiere for the first time, seeing it all encompassing with everything included. And I always sit in the back or behind, the last row of people, because I want to see what the reaction is, and also they can't throw things at you. Back of your head. But I sat there and I watched the reaction of people, and I got the gasps at the right time. You get the giggles at the right time. And that's important to me, because I know we did something right. It all came together. The pieces came together.
I agree. It is very hard to watch oneself. I know for me, and I'm not an actor, I just see everything wrong. So it's kind of, I don't know why that is, but I guess if you care about your work, it's easy to get super critical. Well, I'm really proud of you, David, as always. Stellar work. And Mark, it is really thrilling to meet you. Love your work.
Thank you.
I think Wes like made the whole movie. My son and I were in agreement about that when we watched. David, you too, but it was a smaller role. So
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Where can people find the movie, buy the movie, and enjoy it for themselves?
You can get hard copies on like Walmart.com, Amazon.com if you're still in the CD or the DVD world. Streaming services like Spectrum, Time Warner, all your cable companies will be carrying it. Amazon, if you have an Amazon account, you can download it there and watch it or buy it. You can Apple TV is another place. So it's just about everywhere. If you Google it or just search on your streaming service, you're going to find Black Balsam.
I bought it on Apple TV and it was terrific. So we'll make sure to have links up so everybody can find your fantastic movie. Thank you so much, Mark and David, for joining us. And thank you to our Talking Live audience. We look forward to seeing you next week.